Now, as we mentioned yesterday, and we covered this story yesterday with Stephen Franks, the Māori Party are, for various reasons, or said they wouldn't turn up yesterday at a Privileges Committee hearing at Parliament to probe or investigate their performance of a haka and various other things in Parliament at the first reading of the controversial, gosh, I sound like I'm a walking headline here, the controversial Treaty Principles Bill, a haka that was apparently heard around the world. Labour leader Pena Henare has already been hauled before the Powerful Privileges Committee and was kind of censured, and he issued an apology for his behaviours. The Māori Party not only aren't turning up because they say their lawyer, who is former Treaty Settlements Minister Chris Finnison, their lawyer isn't available to appear with them. They're also saying they're going to hold their own inquiry, like a separate inquiry, because they are rabbiting on about Privileges Committee and Parliament being colonial and oppressive and racist. What is really going on here? Well, Stephen Franks is probably on one side of this issue, as much as he's a lawyer. So I wanted to talk to someone who could just kind of give me the facts and tell me what was going on. And when I'm in that situation, I go to barrister, lawyer, legal expert, particularly on constitutional stuff, Graeme Edgeler. And Graeme, a little bit later than we planned, Graeme joins us on the line now. Good morning, mate. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Good morning.
All right. Now, look, some people tell me what the Māori Party doing is rebellion, insurrection. Let's just boil it down to what, first of all, how serious this hearing for dropping a haka in Parliament is in terms of the context of the Powerful Privileges Committee, Graeme.
It's serious-ish, but I mean, probably not as serious as some of the other things that have gone before the Privileges Committee over the last sort of term or two. I would think, if you might remember the Julianne Genter matter with sort of crossing, sort of waving a thing right in the face of a minister.
That's right, yep.
You go back a little bit longer, you had Winston Peters before a Privileges Committee accused of not putting in financial disclosure reforms that had gotten some money, it was alleged, from businessman Owen Glenn.
Yep.
And that's probably more serious, I would have thought.
Yep.
It's not nothing, because sort of small things, even if they're breaches, just don't get referred. So it has to have a level of seriousness that it's worth spending everyone's time on. So it's not nothing. But the types of penalties that the Privileges Committee recommends to the House that it impose have not been particularly great for some time. I can't remember.
Okay, and why is it called, Graeme, the Powerful Privileges Committee?
Well, unlike all of the other select committees in Parliament, it has some powers. It can summons people to attend. Other select committees can, but they need to go. They can ask the Speaker to decide whether to issue a summons, and then it's up to the Speaker whether the summons actually happens. Privileges Committee can just say, no, we'd like you to come and give evidence, and if you fail to give evidence or fail to turn up, if you've been summoned, then that's something you can get in trouble for. In a similar way, you can get in trouble if you're summoned to attend court and don't turn up, whether it's to give evidence or to appear as a defendant.
Okay. Can the civil or the criminal courts outside Parliament interfere, pass judgment, be appealed to in regards to things that happen at the Privileges Committee?
No. Parliament has done everything it can to make it absolutely clear that parliamentary privileges protect these proceedings. Courts cannot question them in any way. And so, they can appeal to the public, which is, I think sort of what they're doing with their sort of public statements and we're going to hold our own hearing. That's a political thing, and they're politicians like everyone else down there. So if they see some political benefit in doing something in a particular way or holding a meeting, not vastly different from other sort of MPs who've held inquiries
or indeed groups
about different
that have
things
had
in the
mock
past.
trials of the government over COVID, citizens' trials and everything on the lawns of Parliament, which is all just political theatre, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't put that as like this. This
Why not?
could, this is about them, not about sort of someone else who doesn't want to take part. Sort of the mock trial of someone on the Parliament is like, we're imposing this on you. You're someone else. We're challenging you in a particular way.
But their alternate inquiry would have absolutely no legal standing anywhere, would it?
Of course, yes, yes, correct. Yeah. But, it's the, I don't know if you remember, it didn't get a whole lot of things. A few years back, before charter schools were first introduced under the Key government, so it was, I guess, while Helen Clark was Prime Minister, a few of the opposition parties on the Education Committee created, they couldn't get the Education Committee to hold an inquiry into what schooling should look like, so we're just going to hold our own inquiry.
Yeah.
And, opposition, it was National, ACT and Māori Party. Might not have been ACT, might have only had one MP at that time.
Yeah.
National Māori Party and Peter Dunn maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
And they just, the Education Committee won't agree to hold a hearing, we'll hold one. And it sort of came back and said, we should have more flexibility, basically charter schools, and then for some reason, a year later, coalition negotiations, the government's agreed to charter schools only because ACT pushed for it. No, there was a fake sort of semi-select committee thing that wasn't a real committee, a year ago that recommended this. Why are you all surprised? You can hold these sorts of inquiries as a way of inputting. Parliament's going to look at standing orders again in the next year or so, before the next election. So we've held this inquiry. We've heard evidence from tikanga experts about how Parliament's rules could change. Here's something we'd like to feed into the process. It's a political theatre in part, but they might learn something, we might learn something if we pay attention.
Yesterday the committee met, and I've got to say they didn't inflame the situation. They kicked the can down the road, saying, "Okay, you want your legal representative with you, Chris Finlayson. He couldn't be available, so we'll kick it down for a couple of weeks. I think it is until he is available." One presumes they intend to turn up then or not?
I would guess so. They've set up a date for which to have their sort of separate, inquiry or whatever it is they're calling it, which is 2 weeks after that still. So I don't rule out that they don't turn up, but I would guess, having us, hey, we'd like to be there with our lawyer, I would guess that they would turn up.
If they
who knows what happens at the hearing?
To continue to make, and I think to many middle New Zealanders who maybe don't get the political nuance of this, these seem very inflammatory statements they're making about the Privileges Committee and how it operates, and Parliament about how it operates. Are they in danger of creating a new offence by their disrespect for the institutions of Parliament, of compounding the initial alleged offence around the haka?